You are live with Arthur. Greetings, Arthur. What an honor.
Greetings to you, Johnny.
Pleasure. Like the words are missing every time I have you on my screen. I'm like, in heaven. If that's not heaven, I wonder what is. But I have other stuff that I can describe heavenly too. But you are one of the heaven
Well,
treasure
mate,
or
I'm
heaven
flying.
gems of this earth. Yeah.
I'm flying on the waves of your heart space, mate. Your intentions, and I just flow within it. It's like a wave, catching a wave and going in with you. And
That's it.
I enjoy. Yeah, we're not
Uh,
about being professionally polished and all that. It's just sharing insights for those
yeah.
who are studious enough and want to put the time in and and contemplate and use scrutiny and stop, start, stop, start, stop, stop these video podcasts. You know, because there is a lot being said. It's quite a big picture condensed.
Oh, it's
So
big. Big,
for
man.
those who feel that intuitive calling, it'll be like unloading a zip files of many zip files of things, and each one, and we'll come to it in our different ways. I go back and listen as well because they are zip files for me as well. Because
Yeah.
I'm not channeling anything. I don't channel, but it's like a tapping in and feeling things and that wisdom and all the other things that are that speed of thought and scrutiny and all that, and knowing the difference between fiction and non-fiction or life. It helps
No,
me to
and
come up
that's
with it.
like I was telling you. I re-listened to it, and I'm like, oh, that's very deep. I gotta have Arthur again to make some kind of recapitulation of those two episodes we did together because you let out some very profound and deep stuff. So the first one I would like you to go back on is the systems being another man's voice in our head. That makes total sense to me. We have so many voices in our head. And I think the internal work, is also to tame those voices inside. So maybe we can get to hear the voice of divine, of God. I can use all kinds of words. We'll use divine or supreme or super consciousness, like we have put in the title. Maybe you can come to hear, not in a way that you will hear an alphabet thoughts. Like, it's not something, I don't think the frequency of that super consciousness would come and talk to you with words. That's not what I'm saying. But it can communicate with you to guide you in life. And if you look, like, you got to do your part also, you have to observe what's going on around you. You have to observe life. You have to serve, have a servant heart. Once you have all those
Mm.
things incorporated and your ego fully consecrated to the mission and aligned with the mission, maybe we can come to hear something. Like, we want to hear all kinds of stuff, but when it comes to divine voices or divine guidance, often even if we would have it in front of us, we would probably reject it because we're not in that state of mind to be receiving that divine call. But I think if you put yourself in that place on earth with good vibes and good food and good, you treat your body right, like you respect higher and divine, first with your body, treating it right, well, there's other stuff that's going to come and match your frequency. So could that be, Arthur, a way for us to maybe, like, let go of the voices to hear the divine voice, the divine call, or to really realize that maybe you are a chosen one, or maybe you are chosen for this great work, or so you don't have to be scared
It
in
doesn't matter.
whatever you go into in life. So
It's very interesting. You know, I keep going back to like a dog will come and sniff us, right, and it gets all the information. So that's sensory. There's no voices that way. The dog may make a sound, and it's communing with whatever life forms it's connecting with, and what the intention of that dog is in communicating that sound. So I'm looking forward to as mellow and calm down and just keep coming, just started tuning more and more around this village life that we committed to co-creating here. I'd love to be able to talk to birds. Like the other day we had birds singing out just out, and that was a butcher bird and a magpie. Um, and I didn't know it was happening while I'm talking, but I've been talking to so many different birds here. And as I'm walking around this 26.8 acres or 27 acres, I might see, like I saw what they call a noisy miner, another native bird. And I said, well, you guys, won't you can move up to the house yard as well if you wish and join other birds who also have made this yard and the trees and that surrounding the yard, which is roughly an acre. We've got a couple of pairs of kookaburras here now all the time. We have, I think, 3 different pairs of magpies. We have at least 2 or 3 pairs of peewees. These are different type of birds. And we have wrens and finches that come and go, and they come in groups. Um, and we have, I could go on and on about these birds. And the butcher bird, there's at least probably 3 pairs of butcher birds. So from the morning, from the moment the light begins to appear, like very early, I see butcher birds and that they're already out here singing and talking. And I always say, oh, how are you, beautiful? And I talk directly talking to them. I doesn't, I'm just the intention, what I'm feeling, what I'm just telling them. I'm just trusting that they're sensing what I'm talking through alphabets to them. Um, and I've noticed we moved here in October 21st of October 22. And I've noticed about 4 months, 5 months ago, something like that, how many birds have actually moved here inside this area. Not migratory, but birds that live here all year round. I'm beginning to notice it more and more and more. So there's something about the intentions of Fiona and this man and others who come and go and live this dream. And the energy, it's like, you talk about a domain. We're putting all the energy into the domain. And we're holding it in the domain. And the birds are drawn to resonate and mirror in our image our love for them. And they come and they pot around. So anyway, whether that's I'm on a cruise of fantasy here or whether this is really happening, because I've never experienced this before like this. It's like seeing paradise unfolding. To me, from what I really feel, it is really that intention. So it doesn't matter how you worry about the voices in our head and all that, because the intention of every man who's crafted or manifested a letter or an ABC, and then they place their feelings with them. So, like when those birds were singing on the video the other day, they were in the feeling of that spirit, and they were actually just sitting outside our window here, looking through. This is what they do now, at me sitting here, talking. So it's not an accident. That's actually something that's happening. So I'm assuming that will happen even with snakes, lizards, not getting full of ourselves and getting too wound, but just easing our way in. We can actually sense things. Now, how that works for me is that I've learned how not to listen to the voices in the head. I just tune into what the feel of going around. It's a confidence, it's a sense of not doubting the ability. I guess for me, I had that determination way back in 2005 when the beginning of these huge epiphanies had happened for me. I call them huge because they were big for me. And that determination has mirrored in that kind of passion and discipline and focus and ongoing intentions of the heart in wanting to create this kind of paradise life, to break away from the system with all those voices in our head. Now, I wasn't thinking voices in our head back in 2005. That's unfolded over the years of the Love Life work. But to me, they are voices because it is an intention of a man who seeks to be in my head. Now, it's my choice to allow it to come in and entertain me or not. So if we can, and I should also say We don't want to get embroiled in all this, like, get all caught. Oh my God, oh, this is another voice, and we get so caught up in it that we're creating another whole series of trauma and reactive stuff that we're feeding it. We're actually giving it our destructive energy, all emotional stuff, which is what happens in the system life, because it's the only way the system operates. It needs our creating that distorted energy to feed it, to feed the grid, to feed the domain of the system of another man's invention, and how it was passed down through the generation like an inheritance, the legacy of that man. They called him the Grand Architect, and people can call him Lucifer and Satan and Moloch and Baal and whatever you want, Ahriman. It doesn't matter what names you want to give this, but it was a man. It was not something coming from some script telling us it was a fallen angel or some other thing like that. Because this is reality. This is life. We have just lost our connection with the greater than this life, which is the firmament, the atmosphere of the air and the clouds and all that, celestial bodies and space and all that, which is all part of that super intelligence of our brain. We are no different as trees that cast their roots into the soil collectively across all trees and bushes and that, and access the information highways through the soil and the mycelium fungus and all that. We are also connecting into the super intelligence of consciousness, of our true consciousness, of every man that ever was and ever will be, and all those stars that are all these soul groups and clusters. It's all a living creator, living creation that we are, and we come out of that. So I wouldn't worry too much about the voices as such. I just think that if we have a determination to become quiet and peace and calm, and we just learn how to stop listening to all this chit chat in our heads, we can create the space with our intention and determination to allow the sensorama of life to it's already absorbing us all the time, but we can start to attune back to that and feel it. So I mean, maybe I'm waffling through these different things again, but I've had this ability where I can attune to those feelings of that super intelligence and feel it and sense it. And then I also it's like having one foot in the light, as an analogy, and having one foot in the dark, which is all the voices and all the system stuff. And I've been able to use that chaos inside me through my own body and all its suffering, everything I've gone through, to work out what's what and which is which, and how and have that confidence that was greater than what was happening to my vessel, than the suffering that was going on in my body, to navigate a way through, because the intention was to find a way out. I determined to find a way out of this mess, which meant that I was able to journey way back before the system intention began, when a man started it, and to see how tribal villages, nomadic community, doesn't matter, were living without the system and all that scripted stuff. So it became obvious to me that we never came from the Dark Ages. There were no Dark Ages back then. The Dark Ages only during the fallen state, when we've been caught up in the voices of other people's intentions to dominate our vessels, whether it was in the early days of overt with whips and swords and belting and whatever, the Roman centurions and the Greeks and all the invasion armies and the Persians, all that stuff, all that power and control and domination, and whatever psyops were developed from them back then in the overt system, which probably would have been with religions and gods and stuff they created, myths and mythologies, and that the everyday slaves, the people who were captured, would be at the effect of those intentions in their head, those voices, right? Most of the tribes of those days, they couldn't read and write. They had no comprehension of constructs and concepts, right? Just like, for example, the man on the land here, the black fella, seeing these unidentified floating objects coming across the ocean, these British imperial ships or Spanish, Dutch, French, or whatever, from those bloodline Europa families. They're all connected, these people. Um, the man on the land here would be going, like, what is this? What is it? They wouldn't even know what it was. They're looking at it as a ship with its flags and whatever it was doing. And they'd be just perplexed and fascinated, And then they see what became a rowboat and some men coming across to the coast with their big pointy hats and, the kind of attire that people wore back then in those navies and that. And in an attempt to communicate, they'd be talking in either Hebrew or Greek or Latin, or evolution into French or whatever else, or old English, back, which started roughly 9th century, 10th century, in their recorded history. That would all be gobbledygook to the man on the land as they was talking. I use the Aussie thing. Oh, g'day, I'm Admiral Bligh, and I'm from the British Empire. We have the Westminster system, and we come to conduct Medicare. We want to find out whether we can introduce Medicare here, and whatever. You could just come up, and everything would be just going right over their heads. It would be just going right over their heads. It'd be gobbledygook. Martial talk to them. Everything, the clothes they wear, what they've sailed in, everything, and so. In that way, you can already work out what's what, because the man on the land was obviously in a sensory reality, didn't have alphabet tongues. They had their natural ways of sounds and arts and crafts and other facial gestures and hand and body gestures, whatever, that was communicating those intentions, which are not voices in the head to those in their tribe. They were just like dogs singing, talking to each other across the wilderness, or they're walking around as a pack.
I'm just gonna stop you a bit because I like that you're going back on that topic. Now you're talking about sounds, and the birds make sounds. I do like you. Often I will sit in the backyard and make the sound of the red cardinal, which is quite easy to mimic. And not only that, we can mimic any animal sound. I can speak to any animal on earth. That's something only us human can do. You will never see a lion starting to meow or starting to make the sound of a giraffe, or a lion makes a lion noise. Us, we can make so many sounds coming out of our mouth. It's
Yeah,
crazy. And that's, I think, a direct proof to me of that super consciousness,
yeah,
intelligence that we are, is that we can communicate with anything on earth, even the trees. You will not talk to them, but with your intention, you can manifest something and talk to them. So, do you agree that this state of being, that we have the capability to communicate with everything on earth, is somewhat a proof of that?
yeah. No, it's good. I mean, the super intelligence of all of life is a constant communication between life forms. It's just that communication is never ending. And when we tap back into that, because that's where we were too, pre all this invasion stuff that led to the system with its alphabets and all that. I would say that we have all that ability that you touched on naturally. But geez, it's a journey to have to unravel from all of this brainwashing and stuff we've been put through for so long. So it doesn't have to be a journey. It just means, God, I recognize that and have this determination to say, okay, I'm going to let go. And start feeling. And just start trying to learn to feel again, trying to sense things. Because you will notice the difference. Each of us will be different. I mean, we may be stronger in visual imagery, which is communicated through the superintelligence, or it could be sound, which is communicated through the superintelligence. We could be stronger with the sound than with the image. We could have smell, which is communicated through the whole of the superintelligence, right? So all the sensory experiences is a constant. Each of us will be different. in what, like having switches in our brain. We can turn switches on and off. Which ones work? To us to learn to undo the listening to all the voices and their impact. It'll be unique to each of us. I guess the great thing about all this is that through listening to these kind of videos, some people will, because they're searching and they're dreaming for it, they'll come to their unique way of how they want to approach this unnatural phenomena that we've been caught up in, and how to begin to undo our role playing in it. So we're not mimicking anymore the predetermination of all those in our head who want us to perform what they want us to be. Because the language is a robot program. The whole English alphabet language is a robot program for robots. There's no argument about that. For me, it's absolutely, it's a program performing all the fictional tasks to keep the system rolling along, because it needs that constant communication. It needs that constant alliance with physical effort to maintain and uphold fiction, because fiction can't be sustained. So you need to let it dissolve and collapse and rebuild it with another one. So we see series, we always see series through everything. Doesn't matter if it's books, stories, motor cars, motorbikes, trains, planes. We're going through series of evolutionary things, chopper change, because you can't. It's unsustainable. All fiction is completely unsustainable. So, but the true superintelligence is sustainable because it lives in the eternal here and now as a constant. And the more that we don't affect and do harm to life, to nature, the more that communion is happening with us and us with it, and the more it tells us who we really are, reminds us of who we really are and what we are, and that can give us some kind of influence to help us get back. In spite of, you're living in near Montreal. I'm now out of Sydney, but I'm still got civilizations around us. And it's extremely challenging because, everything has been so compromised. All the commercial world of that fiction and the domination power of these people control most of the resources, if not all the resources, that we need access to through money. So we've got to work to make fictional dollars so we can then go into the marketplace to buy plumbing materials or buy electrical or whatever, because we have to, well, for us, we feel we have to transition gradually from the system to no system life again. And in doing that, we're learning through our bodies, learning how to live without them. So we start dropping things like headphones and internet and all that. And we start dropping a lot of technology, and we start to learn to live without them. But we need something else to replace it with. It's no longer a prosthetic. So we have to reconnect to all those things to remember who we are, so we can live without prosthetics and begin to commune with each other through sensory means. Whether I could, just send you an image because I got you, hold your picture and put a picture in your head, and you go, oh, Arthur's trying to contact me, and you just lock in and we send pictures to each other and communicate without having to use internet or mobile phones and all that. We actually can do that. And that's how nature does it too, whether it's smell, sound, taste, because these are a constant, because it's the substance of life. The confusion, going back to touching on some of the other things brought up in the other two videos, is the distortion of feelings that are not natural that's confused us. And we are so caught up with so much distortion. And we've learned to accept it as believing it is part of reality when it ain't. And not at all. So just watching these videos is not going to be enough, to help one work out the difference between the voices and the intuitive sensory direct experience that we naturally are. That direct sensory experience is a constant. That communication with the superintelligent is a constant. We have never left it. Life itself has never been left behind by us. It is the fantasy and the illusion and delusion of accepting the distorted feelings of fiction and giving more and more energy to fiction to construct this other world, this mirage of fantasy that requires destruction to life to manifest the physical material forms of fiction and to live amongst it. And then we need a slave force to maintain what is unsustainable. You cannot sustain anything to do with civilization. It's impossible to sustain it. It's unsustainable because it relies on life. But life has an original purpose. So every living thing will pull back to the original purpose if we stop tampering with life. So forests will begin to return back, will swallow up old cities and have those cities. Well, in fact, we probably have the power to use, or this is mentioned in the Ringing Cedars books, that we have the ability to direct microbes and other things to dissolve concrete and plastic and break it all down much faster, whether it comes through our kids who can do this, but we can actually break it all down much faster to remove these fictions and to allow life to be restored. So the communion with the complete super intelligence of all of life is what is the Godhead, what people call paradise. It's what we are all aspire to, even though we've been hijacked from it, we've been seduced from it from so young.
And Arthur, is there a difference for you between fiction and what I was gonna say? I had something in the head. I forgot.
We're
Between
talking about the
fiction and
voices in it.
unnatural. Between fiction and unnatural, because you talk about fiction, but also you told me that the stars above were unnatural. So now I would like you to
No.
maybe
Okay, let's.
extend on the unnatural and the
What
fiction,
what
because
what
often what sounds unnatural to me sounds like fiction. So
what
now
what is unnatural are the definitions, the scripts that have been explained to us about through
okay,
astrology or astronomy and so on.
the script
That's
of
what's unnatural.
that. Okay.
What we're looking at with life itself is real, but everything that coming into our heads, it's like I said about. Maybe I didn't mention in these videos, but in others. But it's like you can raise a child to go through all the stages of inculcation and brainwashing, who eventually ends up, from kindergarten, primary school, all the way through to high school and then into college or university, with the intention to have degrees that rely on microscopes and telescopes. And they become so brilliant at working with microscopes and telescopes in observing life. But every single thought in their head that's coming in there while they're observing, under the name of scientists, whatever, is not coming from what they're observing. Those What they're thinking, it ain't coming from anything they are observing of life itself, because they've lost that connection with that super intelligent communing with them, with us. So not only have other voices got into our heads to shape our perception that we've gone and become people good at working through telescopes and microscopes, etc., but also we've garnished all these things. We've added our own to it as well. So it's very, very challenging to undo all the scripts. Oh, we're looking at Mars, we're looking at Venus, and there's Mercury, and there's Saturn, and there's Jupiter, and there's Neptune, and there's Pluto, and there's the Sun. And all these triggers, because they're like triggers of fiction that we're recalling, representing, is what keeps us in the matrix of the system, where we're just listening to the voices. Because you understand, like a man who's disconnected from the superintelligence, who happens to be a scientist or an engineer or whatever, is able to go to a mountain and rip it open and put a highway through it, and be able to begin to take everything out of the mountain that they feel they need, with its whatever minerals they want. But at no time are they communing with the purpose of the mountain, of that ecosystem. They don't know it. All they know is the engineering and all their plans and things they want, in superimposing that fiction over the mountain. Now we're doing that with each other. We are constantly superimposing all kinds of impressions that are fiction. Oh, he's like that, she's like that, he's like, what, and we get into the psychology and the counseling and all this stuff. And we end up, we get so confused about who we really are that we actually go to counselors who then have to anesthetize us We
Yeah.
have to become comatose within the fictions of voices in the head to learn to live with the voices in the head and say this is normal, and learn to find peace in that. We can actually find peace with the voices still ruling us and be totally oblivious to all of this. And bless the hearts of all those with good intentions who are doing this as professional psychologists and counselors and all that. But this is the wrong direction. We're not supposed to be doing any of this. Because you can't define it. You see, what is, there is no, you can't define color to anyone. Because look, if there were 10 of us standing together and we're observing a life form, we're looking at what we now call a yellow daffodil. Each one of us is having a direct sensory experience with the life form. And if you're looking at it, I could never ever experience what you are experiencing, even though I'm standing next to you as we're looking at it together. And you will never be able to experience what I'm experiencing with whatever process is going through my head either. So we thought we need to communicate with each other. This is what happened. Why is that? We've got to communicate a way to comprehend fiction. So we're taught ABC 1, 2, 3. We're taught about colors. We're taught about shapes and forms and going through geometry and all these things. But it's not coming from the life form. This includes quantum physics, which does not come from the life forms. It comes from the scripts put in our heads by others. They are voices in our head. So we can't actually sense the communion of the superintelligence of that life form, we now call it daffodils yellow, sharing all its information with us in the here and now. Now that life form can change and change and change and change instant by instant as well, just like we can change instant by instant. So if we're stuck in scripts and think yellow, daffodil, and just keep recalling the scripts and the scientific reasons for it, we're shut off. Same as the young boy who grew up looking through a telescope and or binoculars or microscopes, can't sense the true living information of the superintelligence already communing with this man, or those of us who've come through university and come out of it. It is a complete severing of the ways of life. And we're now so deeply, you and I are doing it right now and talking, or I'm talking, we're talking fiction. How much, if you go back to the blackfellow on the land with the, Captain Bligh talking to him gobbledygook on the shores, what did it take to have a man on the land comprehend Hebrew or Greek or Latin and all the constructs and concepts that are derived from them? Do you realize how much effort has to be put in, and we have to remember it, and it becomes a storehouse of fantasy between our ears, because the only place we can hold it is we have to imagine it and hold it in that ego, that artificial person that we talked about in the other videos, because it doesn't exist. That information doesn't live in the tree or the bird. So when you walk into a forest, all this stuff doesn't exist anywhere we are in nature. It can't be found. If a child brought up by nature was walking through the forest and came across a magazine that fell out of an aeroplane that was going across the skies, and it happened to be a Superman magazine, it would mean nothing to the child. It'd be curious and be fascinated, what the hell, but it would have no sense of anything
And I
to,
think what
to
you said
relate to it.
makes sense because it takes us a long time to learn a language in school. Like how
Yes,
many
exactly.
years did they have to pump it into us to finally get the picture about French, English, or whatever, and the writing without having any uh, fault? I think you said in English.
Yeah,
Default.
because all these things is what arms us to be slaves, cogs in the wheels of the system that's turning, that we are participating as a labor force. So we need to comprehend the constructs and concepts that come up, instant by instant, which is a constant communication, which is reminded through the media, and it's reminded through television and radio and through schools, and when we're talking with each other, we're recalling it. So we're getting refreshing things. And I didn't know that word, or I've forgotten that meaning of that word, and you want to relearn that word and that meaning, and then you try and apply it within the scripts of what you use to talk down the line with others, because you find these pieces of words. But we're talking about hopping into a vehicle we call a motor vehicle, or hopping on a motorbike, or a truck. The amount of fiction involved that we have to learn just to be able to hop in and be able to start it up and know there's a clutch or it's an automatic, and be able to know we've got to, okay, this is a right-hand drive or a left-hand drive, and we have to drive on the left side or the right side of the road, and the opposite traffic is coming the other side of the road, and we have to bitumen the roads, we have to put gutters down the roads, or on the highways we have to create slipstreams that allows us to travel in faster distances. But the depth of fiction we have been inculcated into, that we have become marinated with for so long, we take it for granted now that you and I can talk this modern English language, and there are so many constructs and concepts that we are delivering to each other that you recognize what I mean within the fiction, right? Now, you imagine when you go to work, and when you're talking with your family, or when you go for a job interview, or when you're going to study at school, or study whatever you want to study at your course or whatever. We are so hoodwinked by this stuff. Now we're inside the wave of fiction. We're inside the slipstream of fiction, which ties to the his story right back to where all this started. But everyone needs to be infected, be completely caught up by this dis-ease, this unnatural phenomenon, so that we can tap in. So today, we celebrate New Year's Day. Now, you can't go and visit New Year's Day. It doesn't exist. You can't talk to New Year's Day. You can't talk to seconds and minutes and hours. You can't talk to all these things because it's all made up. We've just been conditioned to place the fiction and superimpose it over what we call life, the sun rising, the sun setting. So we create that and break it down into hours and minutes and that the earth is turning and going around the sun, and so we get the 365 days, and we get the leap year along the way every 4 years, wherever it is, and we get we are so immersed in this fiction that it's a constant that we have to put it out there. Everyone else putting it out there, so it's there for us to tap into. Like when you shift from, for example, if I was to go from Australia to another country that does not know English at all, it's pretty hard now because everywhere is English is the first language now, basically. But let's imagine you just go to China, for example. I can't talk to them about all these constructs and concepts. I can try and give them an impression. They'll have to sense what my intentions are and what I'm saying with my hands and trying to explain. I need to eat.
Yeah.
I need food. Yeah. So all the English will just go right over their heads. But vice versa, all their Chinese will go right over their heads. When you try and read it, you can't even read it. You don't even know what's going on. So there's a lot of conditioning going on to keep us trapped in the slipstream of the fiction, where all that his story that we've accumulated between the years that we live out of that fake ego, that personality, is the constructs and concepts of fiction, of the life we live in the system of fiction. But it also taps into not just you do it, I do it, all my kids will do it because I've trained my kids that way. All our families are doing it, and everywhere we go, they're all tapping into the history that ties into the libraries and into all the rule of law and all their libraries, and ties into the religions and all their holy books, and it ties into all that his story going right back. And we're all inside that wave of fiction that we still have never been able to break out of, that tube ride. We're still in it. And we think it's normal. We're not meant to be the engineer or the scientist going to the mountain and ripping it all open and carving it all up. Because the consequence of that is already now what we call global warming, all the other things that we're causing to life. Now, it's not global warming. It's a consequence of the distortions that we have created and uphold. And that you see, that life is a substance. There's no beginning or end to the substance. We can't get outside of it. Wherever we go, we're still in the substance of life. That's what we call air, substance. Water is air. Celestial space is substance. The celestial bodies is substance. The whole of Earth, nature is all substance. We're constantly in the immersement of substance. It's always evident to us. We have never ever been anywhere where we're not in the substance of all of man that ever was, never will be. We're always in the substance of life. And that substance has the super intelligence that keeps it all working that we're meant to be growing up in. So we communicate through it. We use all our senses to live with it. We create our dreams with it. We create all our unique lives with it, all that. But we never harm it. We never distort it, and we never do pass on any distortion to our children or to our descendants anyway. But in the system, we have the same constant distorted feelings, which is just distorted substance. The substance of life is still in everything of fiction. We've just removed the original purpose from a life form and turned it into steel. Well, we're doing it with insects now to make artificial food. We're eating the voice in the head of another man's intention to create that. We're actually not really communing with the insects as we're eating these insect burgers. We're not communing with any of that. We're not getting that even. Well, we can, if you're like a PETA and you want to protect animals, you can have a sense of the horror of what we're doing to animals. We want to stop all the cruelty. And that's why people become vegan, because they don't want to support the harm to life, to animals. And that's another subject to get into, because the real power of food is in the mycelium fungus network, where we're supposed to grow food in the mycelium network. And all the roots of all the plants, we tap into that humic, in the humus, because we're growing the food mostly in the humus. The colloidal minerals, all the minerals in a liquid, are absorbed by the roots of the plants tapping into the mycelium network. And whatever a plant needs, another plant will deliver, will send it through the mycelium network. So the whole ecosystem can be inside a raised garden bed, closed. You can create an ecosystem in that, if you know what you're doing and how to set that up. And then you can also look at it as a forest, that ecosystem. So everything that's tapping into the forest is connected through the mycelium networks that are underneath everything, if we don't interfere and dig it all up and wreck it. So the purity of all of life is being communicated through all the plants that are tapped into the network. And so everything is maintained in optimum and raised up. So when we as children go into a forest like that and we pick an apple, we're eating the whole forest. We're not eating an apple. We're eating the whole forest with all its goodies and everything for our immune system and everything else. So in that same way, just to finish this mycelium thing, you can create the mycelium work. This is what we've been doing through our garden projects and things we've been learning over the years, how to recreate that, to get the mycelium working. And then we've added our own, diatomaceous earth and zeolite and boron and Epsom salt and fulvic and humic acid powders or liquids. And, we put in kaolinite, which is a form of clay, and seaweed. And it goes to many others that we add. And that becomes inside these raised garden beds and helps to stimulate with what's happening in the humic world underneath the surface, the colloidal minerals, the liquids that the plants tap into and absorb into their fibers. And we eat those fibers raw, and you get the optimum. If we heat it and cook it, we're diminishing that optimum.
So So when we when we realize, first of all, that the divine forces works with a network, okay, there's a network on the ground, and that network is the net worth of the earth. It's not a bank account. It's not nothing to do with that.
Exactly.
So our net worth is our networking stuff, because that's what will make us grow stronger, if we can get the networking with each other and finally
Well, it's
dissipate
true.
the confusion.
Yeah, it's absolutely, because The reason I brought up the mycelium network as an example is the same thing with the air. When we breathe out and our intentions, we can connect with the super intelligence, so we can actually know the truth about what your intentions are, because I can feel it. I don't need it to be explained to me by somebody else, because that can distort it and confuse me. And in fact, I can actually disconnect from it. And all I'm left with is my own images that I've placed and superposed on you, which has got nothing to do with you and your intention. And that leads to slander, and that leads to committing fraud and all kinds of other things, which is the whole system is rooted in this, because we're forced to fit inside predetermined boxes of explanations, of rulings and judgments, etc., which has nothing to do with the uniqueness and originality of our lives as it changes instant by instant by instant. You see, so the only someone wanted power and control, believe they have the right version of reality, so they've gone about forcing their view on everyone else to get them to comply and conform to that view. And then as that's evolved into the languages we're now talking, because we're inside the box of the view, they wanted us to believe it was yellow and there was a daffodil, and it became botany, and it became botanical books, and all recorded all the books. And then that's just one little stream. There's thousands and thousands of these streams that are explaining life to us. But all of it is not real, because it's not your dream. It is not your real life. And that's the key to all the Love for Life work, as to how you know the difference between fiction and life. Because we are when we listen to the voices, we're actually in the dream of another man, or of many of men who added to the cult of that collective modality. So if 10 of us are standing together looking at a life form, the experience that you have is your dream that you're creating in that moment, and that needs to be respected and treasured and never harmed. We should never come inside you and try to alter you, to make you, force you to the will of others, and tell you it's yellow, it's a daffodil, and give you a script that goes with it, and it can go to more and more scripts about that life form. You see, the thing is that if you explain to me, or if I explain to you the experience I'm having, you will still never be able to experience what I'm experiencing. We're left with only imagining. We're left with only imagining what you are experiencing. We may pretend to say, oh, no, I'm in the experience. I know. We don't. Because the uniqueness, the originality of your life is always unique and original. It'll never, ever change if you protect the domain of your real life. You're like that ball of life, like an aura, and you don't let anything else penetrate inside that to put distorted feelings into you. So you are living in those artificial feelings that are dominating your perception and ruling your direction and action, because that's what the robot does through English. It makes, I've got to move the foot this way now, I've got to move the arm this way, and I've got to use the fingers this way, and I've got to do that, and I've got to pick that up, I've got to do that with this and that, and then I've got to turn that into this and that, and this becomes the machine and all the robotic actions. And each of us is doing it. And we're inside boxes defined to us by others, and we're actually not in our dream, because we've forgotten our real dream. Now, that includes government and politics and elections and spirituality and God and conscience. All these things are part of this artificial stuff. It's not who we are, because they're not our dreams. We have not created them. We are not subjects to the authority of another man's determination of what is reality, what is truth. This has been one of the greatest lies I've ever porkied everyone. It's just a big porky. It's a huge lie. The true power is to respect and honor the uniqueness of life in the here and now across eternity. And we just are that. And we create children, they are that too. But we don't turn them into a model of what we think our child should be. This leads to the Samarama stuff I brought up the other day. And what all that, and how I'm told what is a woman, how the woman should look, and And as we are children coming out of the womb of a woman, we're already being got at. We're getting got at because the woman thinks she's doing the right thing. And we as the men are also supporting because we all think we're doing the right thing, not realizing we're actually remodeling our children so they don't
And
have their unique dreams. We
what
deny them.
what you say makes a lot of sense to me, because if you tell me that the flower is yellow, it's only true in the English language. Go tell that to a Chinese that the flower is yellow that doesn't speak English. He will say, "Ah, ah, well, it's like he's gonna be like finding you. What the fuck you saying?" Because he doesn't understand the language. So if I understand French and English, all the definitions that come with French and English are in my head. Now, what's the point to learn 9 languages? Like, is it just to fill your head even more? Because there is people like that tend to believe or wants to acquire many, many languages in a lifetime.
We have
And
many aspirations, Jean. We have many dreams. We will rely on the fiction to place what we feel we need to be doing. I need to go and learn the 9 languages because there will be reasons behind it. Sometimes because I just love languages, and they love. Like my wife loves languages. She's very good with languages, and she's taught English as a second language to migrants, and Spanish, and things like that. So we all have different attributes, but with the confusion is we think we're doing the right thing. In the end, big picture said and done. When we step right back and look at the whole of all of man on earth, everyone who's trying to get inside another man's life to define it for them is part of the corruption of the distorted feelings where we are forgetting the superintelligence, our true connection with life itself. And that whether it's all the doubt and the fear and the distrust and the complacency and the apathy and the denial and everything else that comes with it, because that's what is behind the motivation of system life. You see, the whole of system life is all rooted in going for things that you believe you don't have. You go for what you don't have. You work towards what you don't have. Why do you have to wake up and go to bed through fiction to earn money so you can have a retirement with a house on land? And you have to work 20, 30, 40 years because you really believe you don't have it here and now. And you have to work towards it to have it. Now, that's the same with happiness, love, friendship, communication. We really believe we don't have it. So we go working towards doing what we can to get it. So we play that out with each other. The horror of this is all the wars, is all the chaos, is all the disruption, all the domestic arguments and fights. Everything, because people want something from somebody else when they themselves should already have it. Because if you already got it all, you don't need it from someone else. And when you don't need something from someone else because you got it all, you're a peaceful man. You're a man of peace. You're not a parasite. Now, this is critical because behind wanting to learn 9 languages or wanting to become an engineer or a scientist, wanting to just to make some money and just get by, is because there are so many other areas of your life you believe you don't have because we were got at from so young. We have already got everything built in. Everything we need is already built in. And when we're brought up by nature, all the stimulation evokes all the aspiration, the natural curiosities and things that we are, each of us. And that is what expands that superintelligence as we're accessing through the waves of superintelligence that we're inside, as we're going through the forest or we're out in the water and we're swimming with dolphins or whatever. We already have it all. We don't need to go to a doctor. That's already built in if we had allowed it to come out naturally in the here and now, in the instant moment as it's required, because a life form would have delivered that information to us and we would have gone and eaten it, that fruit or whatever, or herb, whatever. We don't have to go into the storehouse of all that daffodil is yellow to work out what we need and then go and see a naturopath or an osteopath or a chiropractor or herbalist or someone who's going to be a Frankenstein and they're going to chop you open and cut out and start moving organs around and cutting pieces out of your body and all that. Because this is all distorted feelings. This is all that super intelligence being corrupted. So all of us are living in a life where we don't believe we have it. So we give our life over to other people. We give away the responsibility of our lives over to others, who then tell us how to think and feel and what to do and what's right. They tell us which is left, which is right, which way to go, where you I mean, you look at the system with its admiralty law and all its thousands and thousands of statutes. Every moment, right now, every moment, you and I are breaking a law. Oh, it's not a law, but we're breaking a statute ruling. Every moment. There's that many of them. But they're all fiction. And yet, most of us abide by them because we're the robot machines in the system who have to be perpetually laboring. We get our rest, but that rest has also been constructed inside suburbia and apartment blocks and whatever, motor cars and mobile vehicles, tiny homes, whatever, so that we can continue accessing electricity and supply electricity or mobile telephone communication, digital, whatever, to both ways, satellite communication. We have a relationship with Elon Musk. We're using Starlink. I've got a relationship with Elon's technology so that I can talk to you right now. But you see, all this is this artificial, distorted feelings of that super intelligence that we gave up. Because I want to talk to Johnny. I want to reach other people. So I've got to reach all the prosthetics so I can communicate to you through the internet.
So, do you think a shift will happen eventually where we live in super consciousness as a whole? That we're all aligned
My,
towards Iron Divine and doing
you
the
know, my
work,
views are,
serving?
my, my views are as this. We live and die by our own sword. We have free will. Each of us has truly got free will. What we create is it's like what we're thinking, what we are focusing, what we're feeling is a paver we lay down before us that we then walk upon. And we're always going down the yellow brick road of our own invention through fiction. So we will arrive at the outcome. Now, people who love fiction are saying, they're not even conscious of this, but they are saying they don't love life. They love fiction. They want fiction more. And the more we engross in fiction, the more we create the outcome, which means we don't want to be part of life anymore. We want to be part of fiction. And if we die like that, it truly is a separation of the ways, and we're gone forever because we don't know we don't have not created anything that was real to connect us with and carry on with that free will. And with that free will gone, when that body is deceased, you haven't got it anymore to be able. So basically, you can then be harvested because you're so lost in the nebula of the occultic world, of the fantasies of these people who are pirating on you and me and everyone else that oversee the system, with its governance and rule of law and all the other things that makes up system life. People are always answerable to someone else because they gave it up. They need a judge because they gave it up. They need the doctor because they gave it up. It's all built in. But to overcome all the doubt and the uncertainty and the distrust and the confusion and the fear and all that is what this beginning of this conversation started with. How do you know the difference between which is which? So you've got to know your real dreams. You've got to know who you really are. You have to have a domain that where you're already putting life into it, and that the good heart and all its virtues is what feeds it. And if that's strong, it will help us to counter a lot of the persuasion and seduction of fiction, because we will regularly want to go away and track through mountains and go out and live in nature, or we go move to a home, create a home amongst it all to give us more of life to counter this fiction that's trying to seduce the domain of our life and take more of it. Now, look, right now, you have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of men and women, our brothers and sisters, who love fiction so much that they support the aircraft industry. They support all the military industrial complex. They support all the technologies so that we are constantly being sprayed by chemical trails in the sky, and that we're constantly being hammered by HARP and all its frequencies of distortion, because they are corrupting our brain, because the whole of the firmament is our brain. It's where our real consciousness is. And they're in there corrupting it. The same way they tried to bring fluoride in between your ears to put inside your body, and to give you preservatives and other things that you eat and put inside your body. And so many other harmful sounds and images and fear porn and pornography and all the other things that just do immense damage to us. And I've done this through direct experience. I wanted to experience these things on my own body. I've done some crazy stuff, but I wanted to learn this. I wanted to know the truth and not just imagine that I'm thinking this and that it's, just something that I've just added to it. It's the truth. But it's only happening because people have created the outcome for them. The people die, and they really die because they've created the outcome like that. So you can live a whole life where you have not created your dream, to have a real life of man that carries on eternally, to live in a fiction of what you think is a man, with a name you've been given to it, with others who love you that give it to it. But it has no place with life, and it has nowhere to move on with, because you can't sustain it. It's unsustainable. So you're relying on not just the military-industrial complex, all these people, to do all that to the atmosphere that we're all tapping into, which creates so much confusion and distortion and voices coming in our heads that, and getting worse. And it really is getting really that bad. But then we have the whole system life as well contributing to it, because all of those things at the top are all connected to the shopping centers, to the roads and the highways and the government departments and the rule of law, and all that's connected. So we are constantly we're doing it. We're screwing each other over. So we don't allow us to have our real dreams. And we're running around thinking we have our real dreams when we don't. And if you don't create your real dream, which you can only do through senses, you got nothing. And we die like this. So from my perception, billions are dying like this, soulless. They don't have a life. They may think they do. They may imagine they do. They believe they may be talking to the other side. It's all this demonic
fiction.
stuff.
It's all fiction.
It's all fiction. It all connects back to that reincarnation question from the other day. And the white light and all that stuff. Watch out, because all that's bullshit. It's all rooted in the occult. The occultists at the highest levels are promised their own kingdom in the heavens, a place where they rule, and that they will have their subjects, and they'll rule over that, just like you have Caesar, ruling over Rome and all that's conquered, right? So there are many occultists who are sucked into this, who are doing the most dirtiest of dirty works, driven by this promise that they're going to become lords and things in the afterlife.
I thought the veil was thin, but it's a pretty thick veil in front of us.
That's what they do.
Before you go through all that stuff and the languages being just there to mess with our eyes, like, it's crazy. How many languages on Earth? Why so many also?
Well, it's a saturation. The fiction has to be saturated as a constant. So we're always tapping into it. And we're not tapping into the super intelligent because we've been distracted and confused.
Just a distraction too. All those languages, Arthur, it's mostly distractions and stuff.
Yeah, and it feeds, and the ego that we carry, that storehouse of his story that was exposed to all the fiction, is all that we have. So if you got called to court, you bring that before you. You don't bring the man into the court. You bring the fiction into the court. They don't see the man. They see the fiction. And you talk from the fiction, about the fiction, the statute, rulings, and laws. You never talk about the man, because the man, they don't see you. The real living, they don't see you. It takes a lot more to be able to break someone's conscience, to get them to want to feel you, who you really are, and get them to not ignore you, and get them to not walk out, and get all the other things, to really bring them to their knees themselves, even though they may not do it physically, but in between side, to shame them, to show them just the horrors of what they're doing. because that's exactly what they're doing. And all these people who've been given all these promises, all within the hierarchies of that pyramid compartmentalized system, right? With all the different levels of initiation and information provided on a need to know basis. You only know what you know wherever you are, wherever you've been invited into. And even up to the highest, in the end, after everything's said and done, they are all gone too, because it's all an abomination. They're all inside the distorted intelligence of the superintelligent. They are in a distorted world. So
So
how do you
if we want to get in touch with the God frequency, let's call it this way, the super consciousness, it's really to starve everything that has to do with the system in our heads that I'm talking about. Like, let go of a lot of stuff. Maybe it's outside the language that we can maybe more with intention, but your intentions are also matched with words. Like, when I have an intention to be good, oh, I'm being good. So I have a word in my head associated with the action. So how do we associate actions without words, without, like, it's so hard to detach ourselves
Well,
from
it's there.
that
It's there.
program,
It's there.
from the
A
program.
child can learn through observation. I mean, a child learns by the way the parents are and the tribal members, because the whole tribe brings up the child. When you're living from the good hearted virtues, that super intelligence is completely absorbed in the child, and the child's absorbed in it, everything. So it picks it up naturally anyway. You don't have to teach a puppy dog what it is to be a dog before it becomes a dog. There's nothing to teach anyone about anything. Already what it is, it is. It's just that we have been got at the information that we tap into that tells us what we are has been. It's like
There you
we've
go.
been hide. It's something else has come in, and we've shifted the other stuff out of the way, not realizing we've done it, and we allow that egoistic stuff of the history of all the fiction to rule ear, which is then played out in all our actions from night to dark and from bed and getting out of bed and all that. It's all predetermined.
So
So I mean, look,
our connection to higher and divine's been
it's
hijacked.
already here. We've already got it all. It's remember, it's not a journey to a higher connection. We've already are. We've got it all now. It's a matter of just letting go. The real shift is just turning your back on it all and start getting back to nature and just learning how to undo the subjugation of supporting harm practices. We've got to learn how to undo it. Now it's very challenging because we're so compromised. But if that's why we're creating a village. Look, going back to the other question, just to come back to this thing, this about village, is that to me, all civilizations, and we're in one again now, are unsustainable. They all become extinct. And everyone in it becomes extinct. So those who manage to walk away from it manage to carry on. All those who die in that have gone forever. Right up. So once, for example, once enough of us are no longer having photos to remember, no longer having names to remember, no longer having buildings and all other fiction to remind us, the system goes away. It disappears forever, never to be recalled again. And maybe the collective growth of that wisdom will be already naturally in the children, never to go down those roads either again of dabbling in the fantasy of fiction through curiosity, and then from that developing narcissism. Because we get so absorbed with it and we think, oh, this is the right view, which is what I think is what happened when man started to fall. I think one man did this
And
in a tribe.
the first one we can observe a lot is the teachers in schools. Now, I'm not judging anyone, but if you teach in school, you're literally under that big evil stuff against life, because
Well, anyone has a TV at home, they're doing the same thing.
yeah, yeah.
Anyone's got media coming into their life, into the home, is doing it. Everyone who's walking out in the street, seeing billboards and all that, we're doing it. We're all complicit. The thing is that one of the major keys is to stop blaming everyone else for everything. to end this blame and start taking full responsibility and start changing what we can do here and now. And be seen, in this case with this man, I have a bigger picture of the kingdom dream, the village dream. I can see how people can walk away from all the fiction and drop it all, but gradually. We don't want to start up more fires while we're already caught at one big fire we're all trying to put out. So we don't want to recreate more and more distractions, getting more and more caught up in, like posting another view and posting this on Facebook and all, because we're just recreating the stimulation of fiction, which is what we're calling out the fiction to come into our life to give us more fiction. And it comes through the people who are caught up in fiction, who come into your life even if you don't even know them. Things happen because we are the ones manifesting it. We're attracting everything because we're putting it out there. So when we withdraw, we have to cut away from all of it. We stop supporting it. Now, we may still use fiction as in plumbing for now. We may still do whatever we do with big machines to create, in my case, creating waterways and keyline watering systems and getting streams and getting water to move. So you're always hearing the sound of water on Ironbark Farm and all the joining lands that go to the river as we acquire it all. This is what our goal is. There'll be many hundreds of acres. But they have the sound of running water in the distance. Or if you're living closer to it or walking through it and having wooden bridges and creating a paradise life that keeps you so entertained that you have no need to want to leave it because you've got it all already built in with everything, and you're so fulfilled. Being fulfilled, going on the Kontiki tour ships, and traveling around the world, with package tours is not a real fulfillment. You're not really experiencing the real life, because the real. Let me finish. The real life that's critical, the only is the dreams that we create that are unique to each of us. Those dreams are undefined. That's where it all the power, where we reconnect to where we disconnected from, and where we expand it as we let the system fade away into the background, not longer influencing in our heads. Now, how I did it, obviously, I had the ability to. Those voices are still coming out of my head, but I just learned how not to listen to them and started tuning more and more to the feelings, the sensory stuff. And that's where and then from that, I used it to reflect. And all those 20 years of Love for Life insight work came from this contrasting between 1 foot in the dark, 1 foot in the light. Now, I did it, and it was very hard and very suffering, and I wouldn't wish on anyone else to do what I've done. But it's not important whether I've done it or not. The fact was, I just wanted to know what was the truth, what is really the truth. Only to realize it was undefined. You can't tell people what the truth is. I can only tell the truth of what isn't the truth. I can show everybody the fiction or the lies of what is not their real life. But I can never tell anybody the truth of their real life. So we've got to get back to the real dream. The dream we create, each of us create, because that is the soul. That is the soul. It's a word. Forget the word. It's what makes us who we really are, that is built out of the superintelligence that we're bonded with, and that is eternal life. Even when the body's laid to rest, that eternal life continues on. Because we're in that superintelligence of a living consciousness. I have experienced in some of the epiphanies, one of the ones I had before me, I couldn't count all the souls. It was unnumbered of light as I was walking. There were it could be quadrillions, zillions, billions. It could be hundreds of thousands. I don't know. But they all burst into a song. And I knew from back in 2006 that every drop of water is a unique soul, not as an analogy. If you're holding a whole lot of water in our hand, and you imagine they're all just living consciousness, us, each drop is a unique man, even though it's part of the whole of all that water we're holding in our hand. That uniqueness is there. And that's the kingdom village that I'm committed to co-creating with Fiona. That's what we're doing here and now. They're doing everything to try and stop us from making this happen, because this is the greatest threat to these people. Because the remedies can only be found before the fall into the fiction in the first instance. We need to go right back before it to realize that everyone lived in paradise everywhere. Whether you're nomadic or whether you're in a community village, whatever, it doesn't matter. We didn't have the system. It didn't operate. There were no dark ages back then, because the dark ages is this system in our head, and slaving for it and living for it and being told, okay, you got to build that pyramid. You're a slave.
Yeah.
You know, that's not our dream. It's someone else's dream and all their fantasies, of Pharaoh and emperors and Caesars and dictators, and presidents and prime ministers and popes and archbishops, and it goes right down through big business corporation heads and
And
every
all
area
those
rock star.
people performing those jobs, let's say plumber or whatever. I mentioned the teachers before, uh, but because they are affecting the children they teach in school, and children are obligated here in Canada to go to school. So whether you do it at home or you do it in a public or private system, they will have to go through school. So can those people that perform so-called teaching to our children still do it being aware of the distortion, or it's absolutely necessary because that's what I think. You have to be under that spell, under that distortion stuff, and not know it to be able to do that job. Because we're not talking about a plumber plugging pipes together. That's another thing to me. You're not teaching children. But when you're teaching others, other beings, especially children, you're going to affect them on a great, great level all the time. So
I
if you
think I
bring
think you
fiction and stuff that is just from, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah you we got to be conscious that we're not bringing doubt, uncertainty, distrust, confusion into these awakenings that we have, as we realize just the scope of just how big this problem is and how far we all, deep in the rabbit warren we've gone into. We've got to, the only way we get out of it is that we cannot work with the dark side. We've got to ignore all that stuff. Look, as a challenge, it came to me while you were explaining that. Here on this Ironbark farm, we're on almost 27 acres. Now, we use the system to get out of the system. So, meaning we don't want to create more small fires we have to get caught up in. So, we use the system, fit in with the system to serve the bigger picture of how life's going to be without it down the line. Whether it's in this generation or the next one, doesn't matter. The fact is, we are putting into place. So, for example, instead of having 10, 15 families all moving on this 27A and creating massive battles with the court systems and the courts and all that, because they're going to say this is illegal and all that stuff, even though I'm out of the system, their law doesn't work with me because I've been out for 20 years now. I still have to give my energy to this, the amount of effort I have to put in to show they have no authority over me and what I'm doing and what I'm taking responsibility for. Now that opens up other sentiments here. There's other range of things to talk about. Maybe in another interview, we can bring up some of these things,
yeah.
because I'm not their slave. I'm not answerable to them. I'm not harming them. I'm not inviting them into my life. But for some reason, they think they have to come into my life, and then I have to ask them, what? Have you been injured? Have we committed a crime? Have I injured you? Have I done something to your family? What have I done to you in your private life? Anything. What have I done? Why are you in my private life? You see, so that opens up a whole lot of other things. And you've got to be really strong to know who you are when you work out that sort of stuff with these people who believe they're doing the right thing as authorities coming into our life to tell us what we can do on land. Right? So people are so used to crossing the line to enter into another man's life that it's normal. That's why we see people break into homes and all this stuff. Because in the old days, pre the invasion, no one ever entered into someone else's domain like that. No one ever got inside. So to avoid starting up more fires, one of the things that I've been doing, and I don't mind putting this on the public domain because it doesn't bother me, this sort of stuff, is that, well, we're about 600 meters from the river. And all the land between where we are and the river, we can acquire, give them whatever they want, make it so attractive they're willing to sell it and get out. Now, every piece of land can be broken down. You can subdivide all the pieces. Now, use the system, subdivide or break it all down. Now, here's the thing. for us here on this 27 acres, we can have 3 homes legally. We have the family home, we have the farmer's home, and then we have the well, you can call it a cottage, you can call it a studio suite, you can call it whatever you want. There are 3 basic things. So you can have 3 different types of people living and working on this land here legally. And because we can use environmental means of research and study and development, we can bring in more people with tiny homes and stuff to participate in something that is important as a necessity for the greater picture, to come. Now, you've got to be smart how you do it. But in acquiring other land, breaking down, you can have another 3 homes and another 3 homes and another 3 homes and another. So suddenly you can have in the system, in their law, 30 families across the acreage, or 40 families, whatever. Okay, they're all going to be paying council rates. Now, the point is, it's not that we're going to be doing it all the time. We just need to get the community big and strong enough to stand on its own feet completely and be independent and not needing anything before we can unplug. But we've also, at the same time, we've got to show the wider community that it's been a great benefit having us living like this, because their children come and play with our children come and play with their children. All the abundance we create, we give away freely. We don't charge for it. It's all the food, all the resources and skill sets. And so we're actually infecting other people through the good heart Lord's virtues, quietly and peacefully, bit by bit, as we go about it. So we're actually absorbing whatever it is, 600 acres, and removing the whole thing, because I already am removed. I can remove it all and be, well, you can see me as a king if you want. I'm not a king, but I'll take the responsibility because I'm the highest power, because I'm above their law. Their law won't work with me. And yet I'm not a threat to them, and I'm doing any harm to anyone, and they can never prove they've got an interest in this land or that anyone is suffering with this land, right? So when we bought this land, we made sure that the previous person got all the money they wanted, so their matter is complete. And that the stamp duty was paid, all the other things were paid to make sure it's all complete. What I do with this from here, I'm the man on the land working on this land. I can prove that I live on this land, and this is my motherland. They can never come here and think that they have a greater standing. Sure, they can invade. They can create an act of war. They can come in and just kill us. But if we do this in a smart way and do it peacefully, we embrace everyone to the point where everybody in the wider community also want to break away, because we don't need the system. We don't need all these strangers coming into our life telling us how we should be living our lives when they don't know us. They don't know your private dreams, my private dream, my children's dream. They don't know all these aspirations. And we know how to deconstruct the world that they think they offer. Because I was asked this question by a judge in the Supreme Court way back in about 2003 or something, 4, can't remember now. He said, have you not benefited this fictional money? I was showing to them how this money doesn't exist. And he was saying to me, have you not benefited? As if they had given me something. And I have to point out to them, what did you give that doesn't exist? What is it that I can do on land where I don't need you for me to have what I do on the land anyway? And I'm not a threat to you and your family. I'm not going to have my kids looking over the fence of what you guys have got. Or would you like me to grow my children so they're all looking over the fence of what you got, so they will come and invade and rob and steal and create crimes and create problems for you guys because we were depriving us and our kids, and we can't take responsibility for it. They don't like hearing these kind of things, these people. They don't like this sort of stuff. But you've got to know what you're doing when you're dealing with something like this. So I'm happy to play the game, but I'm not interested in being, I have no interest in being remembered for this work. I don't want to be remembered. I just don't want to live this lifestyle anymore. It's a complete severing of everything to do with it. So that's my approach. And one of the ways I can deal with the system and breaking it down without creating more fires, have to put out, by building up a larger community of people who are all working in the system. Yeah, some got to still work in the system. Some got to still bring money in outside, but that could go to pay the rates and buy the materials and resources we need to build all the infrastructures of all the whole system that we're going to, of the community that we're going to live in. So the point that when there's enough of us living as a village where everyone's taking care of the village, so that the whole village can take care of everyone. And that is the remedy. That is the true remedy, where power is brought back to the local level, where everyone knows each other at the local level, intimately, where everyone's child is been raised by everybody, without harming them, without taking away and interfering with the uniqueness of every family and their home, their little domains that they have, their 1 hectare of land or whatever it is that they need to be living in that community, of a larger community, where there's no local councils, there's no more state governments, no federal governments. We don't need greater government. Like, one of the other things I've been pointing out to people is that they have to create problems at a local level and create such chaos so they can then bring in something bigger than local to maintain power and control over what's going chaotic local. So they create state government. And then because state government's a problem, they then bring in federal government to try and deal with what's happening in federal, state and local. But if we are fully responsible for our lives, we don't need anything that we're answerable to, because we don't need any of it. If we're fully responsible for our actions, we are at the highest power, because everything is accountable. And then you can point out to these people what fictions, what authorities, whatever they have. Why do you think they're going to so much trouble with the vaccines, with all the things they've done, with all the things they're doing to these days through the chemical trails and HAARP and everything else, to distort everything, because they don't want us to wake up and remember who we really are and gather the forces naturally, where we did what the great man did a long time ago, where we turned what is now Palestine was green, made it all green again. And they had centurions fleeing Rome to be part of it. It's not what's written in the books. They twisted it so they could institutionalize, politicalize, culturalize, socialize, homogenize, pasteurize our history, our real history, try and distort it all. So you've got to remember that if you peel back the system like an onion ring, you find it's a man sitting on a power.
Yeah.
You peel back Mohammedanism, Judaism, it's a man or a group. That's what we're dealing with here, who believe they have the authority. Everything else that's extenuated from it, to have minions trapped in it through the Roman Catholic Church, Church of England, the Jesuits, the Greek Church, etc. Is the cleverness, is the brilliance of these people and how to suck everyone else into it. But the great man everyone calls Jesus and all that, it's not that real story, because if you think about it, anyone who's waking up to the big picture of the truth, you can see how important nature is. You can see how important the green and all the abundance of food, because it feeds us, and all the clean water we drink with it, and that we take responsibility for it, because that's where we get life, and our super intelligence is connected. So they knew all that back then too. So everything that's been created today, that's what we're trying to do, has already happened before. They just removed all the key stuff to leave everything institutionalized and politicalized in such a way so that Jesus would have a pope, and would have the archbishops and would have administrators and that. And or in this case, when you got the rulers of behind the Judaic world and the Hebrew world, and now it's the legal system. The Sandringham have become the court system, the bar. Everything that worked back then is the same today. You still got the court system and the law of the people. You still got the religion and all that connects with the law of the people. You still got the government and all that, which connects with the law and all of the people. So it's a cunning guile these people have to try to seduce you that Jesus is the Savior and the Messiah. He never came as to be anybody's Savior and Messiah. He can only show the way, but take responsibility for it. You've got to take responsibility for it. You've got to want to love and allow God to come into your heart, into your life. This is what I talk about. You've got to allow it to work with the good heart and all its virtues, and let that become the dominant power. It's not centralized as a man that we answer to as a God. It is what we are part of as a co-creation of life itself, which means we respect everything of life. We no longer interfere and corrupt it, which is what the great man was on about. They left all that out. They just removed it all. Because that's just think about it. Like in an overt system like that, you look at the journey of the Israelites from the promise, of them, and then having to go to Israel and then become slaves in Egypt, become slaves in Egypt, which is ancient Greece, and then having all those hundreds of years and all the stories they've written to be able to get Moses to create the Exodus so they can turn their back on the system. Only really what they've done is they've conscripted everyone to go into a covert system of slavery, which is the New Testament. Well, the Old Testament was all overt and the New Testament was covert. That's just me. That's just how I look at it. That's what I look at it. Because it's still all fiction, no matter what you're looking at. I look at it all as fiction. So it's just they're changing the way fiction works, because that's all the occultists have to work with. They can't work with the super intelligent, because that means the good heart and all the virtues will be uplifted. And we're back in paradise. So they've got to work with the distortions of things and then uphold it and maintain it and make it look like this is the best we can be. This is normal. Chaos happens. We have up and down, up and down, up and down. Chaos, peace, order out of chaos. It's all engineered, predetermined. And they play on the fact that they must make you believe that you don't have something and you need it. So you go looking for freedom and you already got it. You're already on land, but you go working for it and you got to pay taxes and all that to have it. And it goes on. This is so insidious. This comes back to love, happiness, joy. We already got it all. And when we are that, we don't need it from anyone else. And when you have a team of people co-creating like that, it's very powerful as a tribe, as a village. And that's what we're doing. And that's the remedy. And that's how you get out of this mess, and how you work it out in your unique way, which is fiction. I think you just got to work it out. Like I said the other day, I can't go and visit number 9 anywhere. I can only go and talk to a man who talks about number 9, who acts on behalf of number 9. I can't go and talk to a god of fiction. I can only go and talk to a man acting as a representative of that god. Now, you only have to watch all the shows and TV shows about all the old days from the Old Testament, New Testament, all the stories, all these priests and all that acting as the authorities of this God and the God's word and all this stuff. It's all this deception. Now, whether they are all complicit into it, which I suspect many are, because you've got to know, it's like a tennis court, which is what a skilled judge will do with a mortgage case, where they don't want precedents. They don't want to establish a precedent where you can collapse the whole system. So they have a judge who will try and keep you inside the tennis court, because in a tennis, you're playing with a racket, right? It's a racket. And you're playing with a ball, and you're playing with opposition, with opposing sides. You've got that duality now. And then the court has all the boundaries of all their rules. So they've got to keep you inside the court while you argue and fight inside the court system. You get someone like me comes along, I step outside of the whole damn thing. None of that works. But I've got to be living proof that I'm not in their world. I'm not of it. I'm not to be arrogantly or smart ass or anything. It's just, it really is life and death in some ways, because you're dealing with people who, the history of invasion and murder, of genocide. Look at the scale of what they're doing today to try to deceive people. How many millions are dying now because of the vax? Now, the real statistics is very interesting. I take an interest in these things. It's going over into the millions. Now, people will always say, it's due to this and due to that and due to this. But the death rates, as a standard yearly death rate in the populations of the country, there was one girl I came across who did this about a year and a half ago. There was a spike back in 1962 or 63 above the normal average of the death rate. It was a very small spike. But it's only since what happened a few years ago that we started seeing a massive spike starting to increase of the death rate, the average death rate across the population. Even though the population has grown since 62, 63 to 2003, it's still, you can see the average. And that really shows the evidence. And when you see men and women, there are a lot of videos that I looked at of who work inside funeral areas, who are reporting things that they have noticed. And then you come across some people with autopsies, and they're reporting what they have found. And you see this as a collective. Sure, you can get caught up in a conspiracy theory, but to me, there's so much meddling going on. Now, remember, forget all the fear porn. The whole of Corona was fiction. Everything to do with everything associated was fiction. You can't go and talk to Corona or COVID-19, whatever it is, 19, in nature and access the scripts. Nothing. You have to be exposed to that matrix well, where all that information is that we talked about earlier in this video, and tap into that constructed well, where you know all the constructs and concept that forms the idea of a needle and vaccination and all the things that come with it, that's rooted in science and all the other stuff that goes into politics and media. You follow that. So I can't go to nature and have that happen for me. So that tells me the truth, how big a lie it is. That's just enough. And people say, oh, but we need it. Oh, really? How much distortion are we living amongst? How much pollution? We've got over 101,000 chemicals and toxins and poisons coming and going in our lives right now through the air we breathe, the water we drink, on the land we stand on. And you add all the microwaves and radio, all these other frequencies and things that they've created for us to communicate, cellular, digital, etc. They're all coming, going out of our bodies. All that's going to be is all unnatural. It's distorted. And you look at all the food that's grown from a distance, where the people are growing it don't have you in their dreams, or your children. They don't know you. You are a stranger to them. And they are mostly going to be under pressure. There's two types of them. And they're going to be having to work hard to make enough produce. And they've got to, again, get it refrigerated. They're going to have to spray it and chemicalize, because they need to sell it at market to get a good dividend for their work they've done, so they can get on with their farm life and do all what they do with their families and others and that. And then you've got the big corporates who know the truth about all of this stuff, who manipulate and control the food supply system with all its chemicals and poisons and stuff that they do to it. And, then you end up with what we call the Woolworths, the fresh food people here. There's nothing really truly fresh about, because it's not grown in the true ecosystem of the earth itself, where all the plants have got the colloidal minerals all in it, which is what gives us the real health, let alone all the other things, that people kind about vitamins and all the other stuff. But so if you follow what I'm saying, there already is a massive distortion that we live amongst that's creating so much chaos amongst us in health. To have to ignore all that because someone says that Corona was needed, we needed to have the vax. You've got to know how to show the bigger picture. Now, this evidence is incontrovertible. It's unarguable. We don't need to absorb unnatural things, and put them in plastic bottles that leach, and whatever we do. And we are a civilization coming to the end with an extinction label on top. It's happening now. We're living in it now. We're going to witness this before our eyes, those of us who do make it. And the only way we can make it is we've got to follow the intuition, the gut instinct of the big picture of the Creator. It's not a voice in our head. And we will know where we need to go and be where we need to be and do what we got to do to avoid it coming upon us. So, like the story of in the Old Testament that where God was going to kill the firstborn of every child as part of the actions to free the Israelites through Moses, and that set them free to go back to their promised land. And then overnight, all the firstborn were killed, except for those who painted blood over the entrances to protect them. This is in the story, right? So that's no different to them introducing vast vaccination campaigns, because they want to knock out all those young ones coming through that could become a threat to them, because they'll speak out against them. And why they're knocking out all those people who had influence over public thinking since the 60s. All those who may not be fully awake, but they got a conscience, and they will speak from the conscience from anything that becomes apparent to them. Most of these people have been gotten rid of through the music industry, the film industry, because what you have today is mostly their own puppets. Most of their own puppets. And that comes down to the podcast and everything else. You're not going to, like I mentioned the other day, I'd be interested to see if Joe Rogan ever had the time to want to talk to someone like us, Fiona and I, live. With that audience. Would they like us to have to socially manage that? I don't think they will. Now, I can talk differently with someone like him. I don't have to do it the way I'm doing it with you. I can go with a different approach. But what I'm saying is that the remedy is pretty simple. You just got to truly follow your heart and listen to it. We've all got it. We've never been deprived of it. We may be so good at being distracted from it, even if we've grown to be over 60 years of age, we can still connect with that and listen to that intuitive sensory experience and go with that so that we can transition as this whole civilization collapses, because it cannot sustain it. It's something that does not exist, that's imagined to be propped up. How long can you keep it up?
Exactly.
You can't.
Well, Arthur, I don't want to cut you off, but like I said, we're going to do an hour and a half something. We're already an hour and 40 into our talk. Someone posted something in the chat, and that's how we're going to start the other one, and I find it very more than interesting. It says, there is no duality. The ego, the I, is an illusion of separation with what is, what is. There is nobody to drop the high. And
Let
that's,
me explain. Let me quickly explain this.
yeah.
The ego is the separation where we form this narcissism. We carry. It's like a library.
Yeah.
And we carry this artificial library, and we think, oh, this is Arthur. This is Arthur's address. This is where Arthur's about. This is Arthur's race, culture, creed, and there's your duality. And it not only plays out in the vessel of this man, but it also then plays out in the vessel of everyone else who also carry that box with them. So there is no duality that way. It's an illusion. It's fiction. It doesn't exist, right? So
it's
he's
not
correct.
black and white. It's always gray.
There is, when you see duality, you know you're in the occults. You've been trapped because it's streamed down from the highest place of the occult who created it, filtered down through the system life, coming through music industry or coming through film industry or coming through newspapers and magazines and trash magazines and coming through iPads and iPhones and commercials and stuff and podcasts, because there's tens of thousands of podcasts out there now. And there's so much internet chat with so many different themes being talked about moment by moment by moment. This shattered reality is all playing out the duality because it's only inside the story that we carry around of that ego. When we don't have an ego, when we learn to step aside from it, who we are is everywhere. We're not centralized. We're no longer centralized because the whole of the system is all rooted in centralization of power. That's the all-seeing eye. That's why, in the gradual fallen state of the system, we had Joe and Luigi's hardware store and Mary and Tom's plumbing store and Peter and Paul's fruit shop. They've all been consumed now because they can't handle the financial might of these people who create money out of thin air, and they become the Bunnings. They become all these international corporations, including McDonald's and all that, who are dominating at the local level everywhere, where once there was a hamburger store or a food shop. Even though it's all part of the system, the gradualism of centralization. Now you got Officeworks, Walmart,
and then they make you graduate
Amazon.
in school.
And so we are now. That's all part of this duality of this thing. When we step away from all that, there is no more centralization. There's no one out there that can rule us anymore because we are it, each of us. And that's the true godliness that we are created in. That's the image of the real creator that's in all of us, that lives in the here and now eternally. We have never been separated from it ever. Only the illusion, the distractions that come from those illusions, those fantasies, have misguided us, confused us. So he's right. What he's saying.
We're gonna get back to that topic because it's big, obviously, because this world is thriving on giving us a duality all the time in everything, even male, female. Now, does man and woman really exist, or it's man? Because you always refer at as man and woman being man.
Maybe one day we'll get back to life. It's just life. Your life, I'm life, we're all life. No titles, no labels, no nothing. That would probably be how it will be, because I'm sure in nature it works like that.
Yeah.
Everything then become instinctive, like to maintain the optimum nature, to maintain the optimum of nature, of life, right? You think about this. This is just to finish this. The cheetah will do what the cheetah has to do with its prey, but then you find videos where cheetahs and their prey are sitting at the same waterhole, relaxed. So the reason why a crocodile comes to attack us is of the distortion of that misuse of that super intelligence. It instinctively knows, without having to rationalize it and talk about, like you and I are talking about it, that's impure. When it comes across the true consciousness of a living man, it won't touch the man. It knows instinctively. It's no longer voracious and threatening and dangerous. And a man like that can also co-create and work with the crocodile. Now, okay, this is really freaky stuff, because the same with
Oh,
white shark,
yeah.
but
It's
with,
deep.
with white pointers and all through nature. Nature is maintaining the optimum so that the perfection of the dream of life continues to exist in the here and now, eternally. So we can come and go from this physical encounter, this substance life encounter. So that's why we have the optimum of nature, and why, what people call dog eat dog and survival of it, it's not. They're just maintaining the optimum purity of every living thing. So that collectively, from the biggest picture, the whole of creation, it continues to exist in a physical form, in substance, that we can enter into a life and be part of. And then after, that's the best I can explain. I don't have all the answers to all this, mate, but to me, that is what's going on. So yeah, the super intelligent, returning back to that, is the true godliness of all of us. And we're not less or lower or higher. We're not below God. No, this is, I'll quickly end this for you guys. Just a couple of things here. I've said to Christians who've come into my life from time to time, because I grew up as a Christian and my mother's still Christian and Greek Orthodox, and I say to them, you love your children, do you? And they said, yes, we do. Do you love your children unconditionally? And meaning, you dream for them to do even greater things than you, and that you'll do everything you can to support your children so they can be that? And they say, yes. So I said, do you think the Creator created you and want you to be less than the Creator? Now you think about this. Anything that comes from the truth would never want to keep you down and less. It would embrace you and empower you to rise up even to greater than the Creator. I'm not joking when I'm saying this. This freaks people out when you point this out to them. And the other thing I say to them, well, you think you've been saved by this God, right? But here you are, you're still supporting the system, and you allow, by your participation, that the slave system must continue, and all the role playing of all the blue collars and white collars and all the different categories of titles and deeds and standings that they all play out. Do you think that the Creator who loves you unconditionally would let you back into his paradise after he witnessed you destroying earth that he gave you? Would you let someone else come into your home after they destroyed it for you the first time and you fixed it? Would you let them back into your home?
For sure, no.
I wouldn't.
No.
Exactly. So I say to all the Christians, just how much more destruction do you think you're going to participate in and support in your relationship with the system, while you think you're saved and you're going to be with your favorite Messiah and saved in the afterlife? You really think this is your Creator is going to let you in when he has a history that he can tap in to see how much you have destroyed the paradise he gave you and gave your parents and your grandparents and all your descendants right back? You think he's going to let you back in? You think he could trust you not to harm and destroy the one he's in? As these analogies, right? So this is the kind of absurd things that I find that really are very disturbing about how disconnected we are, because we think we're better. Why? Because we went searching for something we don't have. Now we cling to it emotionally, destructively. Oh, I've got something better. Now I'm looking down on you, and there's your arrogance and all this other dark stuff still playing out, because arrogance is still a destructive emotion, with doubt and uncertainty and distrust. Same with righteousness. See, it's not about first and last, Rich and Paul. It's about embracing all of life and nurturing it all to just rise up, like you talk about. Rise up. A
Rise
natural
up.
thing.
Anyway, a pleasure and honor again to have you on for this divine moment, divine talk. It's recorded in time too. That's what's great about it. As we talk together. You're very inspired. Obviously, I think everyone I've noticed that Arthur is a very inspired man, but also you have done a lot of work, so it comes very natural to you to speak these words. We can all tell.
Just want to
So
know what the truth was. All I
exactly.
wanted to know what the truth was. I need to come to realize that there is no truth that way.
And you don't come here to lie, so you don't have to remember anything. You just go free flow and out of
And the
your
reason, and the exactly, and the reason for that is a lie is a curse, and everyone lying is processing curses,
yeah,
and the whole of the system is fraud, and everything in system life is a lie of that fraud, and people don't realize how the curse is working on them. And that's why they have death certificates and all these other hidden words in the English language that shows their dead state. It's staggering how many words you can find
yeah.
that cover all this. So yeah, a lie is
Anyway,
a curse. It's very challenging to not have to process a curse, which is another reason you've got to be smart enough not to get caught up in this stuff. So again, to calm down and just work with the good heart and all its virtues. It's just like the great man said, do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. Just be morally correct. Practice it. Just keep practicing it. Keep it all very simple, and work away at the little things, and they become bigger things. The old motto: look after the sense look after the dollars. Look after those little acts of love, and those little acts of love, kindness, good heart, virtues, will
yeah,
start taking care of all the bigger ones. Because you're attracting and drawing it to you too and doing it. So you're already going to have things happening. It's the same as we breathe. We don't have to jump. I'm not going to jump from here across the room 10 feet to grab my next breath. I've already got it here and now. And all the time we're talking, I've already got it here and now. And it's eternally here and now. Unless someone wants to come and subjugate me and put me into a space where there is no air and try and kill my vessel that way, I'm not going to be threatened. So why do I have to worry about all these things? So if you just look after the basic things, don't get into doubt and all that, everything starts getting taken care of. And everything you need starts happening. So it all comes from the bigger dream of what you're holding. If I'm holding for abundance of food, abundance of water, abundance of nature and life, abundance of brothers and sisters, co-creating just a simple way of life from the heart, ignoring all the differences, ignoring all the other things without disrespecting it. We actually can live like this. It's not impossible to do if we want to take the responsibility to stop harming each other and stop playing out the egoistic forces that play out through us, that push us away from each other and centralize and play out these. I want that. This is for me. It's mine. My version, my thing is better. I want to be noticed because no one really deep down, you don't really love yourself. So you spend your whole life trying to make it to impress other people around you. And you have to be a slave having to maintain the lie of that fabric of how you look, because you spend your whole life mimicking other people, and then you keep changing how you're mimicking other people because you still don't know who you really are. So, I know a lot about this sort of stuff because I've had that directly in my life for many years, many, many years. But that's not another subject, another time, bro.
Okay, we're out. Anyway, large up, Arthur, large up, everyone again joining us live and watching after. Most of you watch it after. We get it. Yeah, we're not always on the same timing and time, so. But we will be forward again with Arthur definitely because I got more questions for him. I'll have questions till the day I die, probably, with this eternal internal dialogue or war going on. So no, we're gonna
Uh,
dissipate the
just
war and go into peace.
Can I just say that in your videos, if I give you all our links
Yeah,
and you can put them in the about section
yeah,
of your video, and I
yeah,
do it to the ones when I put up, people who want to explore Ironbark Farm or want to explore Love for Life, want to look at these and find out what's going on, they can have that. Because
yeah,
really, the reason why I do all this talking, why you do it, is we all want to create these kind of village life communities,
yeah.
because that's all we've got in the end. We don't have anything else.
That's another
Um,
topic I want to hear you on is self sufficiency. because
Yeah.
there is this idea of being self-sufficient, but I think it's a bit some kind of an illusion again, because you're not yourself here on earth. You're not by yourself. You cannot produce everything your body needs or your house or your farm needs. So self-sufficiency is maybe in community. I
if
see
we
it.
strip if we strip back to nature and we're Adam and Eve, we don't need all the system. We don't
Right.
need everything. But to get back to that, that's a challenge. Well, that's where we're going to have to arrive at, and we've got to leave a precedence for the children to come through and carry on that, and maybe we come as some of those children, and carry on this thing, and to bring back this purity that where everything's so damn simple. It's really interesting, Zani. Just I know we've got to say goodbye quickly. Is that when we wake up, we are no longer having to go through the fiction of searching out into the wider world by traveling everywhere all the time, or having to do things all the time with wherever to make us feel like that we're growing. When you're on a village community life, living what we're talking about, it is so empowering that the bigger picture is so huge that we can actually expand our consciousness. We actually can shift our consciousness anywhere, as if we're traveling without having to use fiction to travel, to observe and learn elsewhere. If we needed that as a dream, we have that already. The occultists use this against us. They do this very thing.
That's
Anyway,
why you see an airplane on the first page of my channel, because I'm traveling. I'm a traveler, but I don't travel in a airplane. But it's a way for me to say, "Hey, I'm the world traveler," but I travel inside of that. So yeah,
you're not
that's
traveling in an airplane anyway. Full stop. You're not going anywhere.
no
Just
exactly.
because you're in an airplane, the airplane looks like it's moving from land to land. You haven't moved.
I'm still. I'm like a
You
dog.
think
Very
you got to
still.
think about it. Maybe we'll talk about that another
That's
time.
it. Okay,
Take
we're out.
care.
End
All the best.
stream right now, and that's it. We'll see you guys again in the
Bye.
near
Bye,
future.
everyone.
See ya. We're
Bye,
out.
Johnny.